Hello guys, let's start chapter number 1 with Simon Commission. Till Government of India Act or Morlemento Act और गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1919 तक हमने कल ख़त्म कर लिया था. आज साइमन कमीशन से स्टार्ट करते हैं. सो साइमन कमीशन in November 1927, that is 2 years before the schedule, the British government announced the appointment of 7-member statutory commission under the chairmanship of Sir John Simon to report on condition of India under its new constitution. All the members of the commission were British and hence all the parties boycotted the commission. The commission submitted its report in 1930 and recommended the abolition of hierarchy, extension of responsible government in the province, establishment of Federation of British India and princely state, continuation of communal electorate, and so on. To consider the proposal of the commission, the British government convened 3 round table conference of representative of British government, British India and Indian princely state. On the basis of these discussion, white paper on constitutional reforms were prepared and submitted for the consideration of joint selected committee of British Parliament. The recommendation of this committee were incorporated with certain change in the next Government of India Act 1935. Communal Award. In August 1932, Ramsay MacDonald, the British Prime Minister, announced a scheme of representation of ministries which came to known as the Communal Award. The award not only continues separate electorate for the Muslim, Sikh, Indian, Christian, Anglo-Indian and Europeans but also extended its to the depressed class, scheduled caste. Gandhiji was distressed over this extension of principle of communal representation to the depressed class and undertook a first unto death in Yadarwa jail, Pune, to get the award modified. At the last, there was an agreement between Congress and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the leader of depressed class. The agreement, known as Pune Pact, retained in Hindu joint electorate and give reserved seat to the depressed class. Guys, this Pune Pact, also known as the reservation, started from there for the scheduled caste. The British government accepted the Pune Pact and modified the communal award in respect to the depressed class, scheduled caste. This means that the provinces of separate electorate of the depressed classes were dropped from the scheme of representation continued in the communal award. Subsequently, the provision of the Pune Pact were incorporated in the next Government of India Act 1935. In the other word, the composition of the central and provincial legislature under the 1935 Act was based on this modified communal award. So, the Pune Pact, the saying is that कि रिजर्वेशन भीख नहीं, ये पूना पैक्ट का वादा है. दिस पॉपुलर सेइंग इज. So let's continue with Government of India Act 1935. It's very important. So the act marked a second milestone towards the completely responsible government in India. It was lengthy and detailed document having 321 section and 10 schedule. The features of this act were as follows. First feature, it provide for the establishment of all India Federation consisting of province and princely state as unit. The act divided the power between the center and unit in terms of three lists: federal list, which consists of 59 items, provincial list 54 items, and concurrent list for the both 35 items. The federal list for center, provincial list for province or that time state, or the concurrent list is both 36 item. Residuary power were given to the viceroy governor general. However, the federation never came into being as a princely state did not join it. Second feature, it abolished hierarchy in the province and introduced provincial autonomy in its place. The provinces were allowed to act as an autonomous unit of administration in their defined spheres. Moreover, the act introduced responsible government in the province, that is, governor was required to act with the advice of ministers responsible to the provincial legislature. This came into effect in 1937 and was discontinued in 1939. Third feature, it provides for the adoption of hierarchy at the center. Consequently, the federal subject were divided into the reserve subject and transfer subject. However, this provision of act did not came into the operation at all. Fourth feature, it introduced bicameralism in 6 out of 7 provinces. Thus, the legislature of Bengal, Bombay, Madras, Bihar, Assam, and United Provinces were made bicameral, consisting of Legislative Council, Upper House, and Legislature Assembly, Lower House. However, many restrictions were placed on them. Fifth feature, it reserved a certain number of general seats for the depressed class, scheduled caste. It also extended the special representation to the women and labor workers. Sixth feature, it abolished the Council of India, establishment by the Government of India Act 1858. The Secretary of State of India was provided with a team of advisors. Seventh feature, it extended the franchise. About 14% of the total population got the voting right. Eighth, it provided for the establishment of the Reserve Bank of India to control the currency and credit of the country. Ninth feature, it provides for the establishment of not only the Federal Public Service Commission but also Provincial Public Service Commission and Joint Public Service Commission for 2 or more provinces. Tenth features, it provides for establishment of the federal court, which was set up in 1937. 11th, it separated Burma, now Myanmar, from India. 12th, it created 2 new provinces of Odisha and Sindh. 13, it provided for safeguard to protect the interest of minority. 14, it provided for the establishment of the Federal Railway Authority to look after the administration of railway. 15th, it provided for the appointment of an Auditor General of India to audit the account of federation and provinces. And the last one, Indian Independence Act of 1947. On February 20, 1947, the British Prime Minister Clement Attlee declared that the British rule in India would end by June 30, 1948, after which the power would be transferred to responsible Indian hand. This announcement was followed by the agitation by the Muslim League demanding the partition of the country. Again, on June 3rd June 1947, the British government made it clear that any constitution framed by the Constitutional Assembly of India formed in 1946 cannot apply to those parts of country which were unwillingly to accept it. On the same day, June 3, 1947, Lord Mountbatten, the Viceroy of India, put forth the partition plan known as Mountbatten Plan. The plan was accepted by the Congress and Muslim League. immediate effect was given to the plan by enacting the Indian Independence Act. So let's discuss the feature of this act. Before this, the some point is here. So let's read out. The Indian Independent Bill was introduced in the British Parliament on 4th July 1947 and received the royal assent on July 18, 1947. The act came into force on 15 August 1947, that we observe as an Independence Day. So feature of the Independence Act 1947. So first feature is it ended the British rule in India and declared India as an independent and sovereign state from August 15, 1947. It provided for the partition of India and creation of two independent dominions of India and Pakistan with the right to secede from the British Commonwealth. Third, it abolished the office of Viceroy and provided for each dominion a Governor General who was to be appointed by the British King on the advice of Dominion Cabinet. His Majesty government in British was to have no responsibility with respect to the government of India or Pakistan. Fourth, it empowered the constituent assemblies of the two dominion to frame and adopt any constitution for their respective nation and to repeal any act of the British Parliament, including the Independence Act itself. Fifth, it empowered the Constituent Assembly of both the Dominion to legislate for their respective territory till new constitutions were drafted and enforced. No act of British Parliament passed after August 15, 1947 was to extended to the either of new dominions unless, sorry guys, it's dominions, I pronounce wrongly, so it's dominions, unless it was extended thereto by the law of legislature of the dominion. Sixth, it abolished the office of Secretary of State for the India and transfer his function to Secretary of State for Commonwealth Affairs. Seventh, it proclaimed the lapse of British paramountcy over the Indian princely state and treaty relation with tribal areas from August 15, 1947. It granted freedom to the Indian princely state either to join the Dominion of India or Dominion of Pakistan or to remain independent. Ninth, it provided for the governance of each of the dominions and province by the Government of India Act 1935 till the new constitution were framed. The dominions were, however, authorized to make modification in the act. 10th, it deprived the British monarch of his right to veto bill to ask the reservation of the certain bill for his appeal, but this right was reserved for the Governor General. The Governor General would have full power to assent to any bill in the name of His Majesty. 11th, it designated the Governor General of India and Provincial Governor as a constitutional or nominal head of the state. They were made to act on the advice of respective council of ministers in all matters. 12th, it dropped the title of Emperor of India from the royal title of King of England. 13, it discontinued the appointment of the civil service and reservation of post by the Secretary of State for India. The member of the civil service appointed before August 15, 1947 would continue to enjoy all benefit that they were entitled to till that time. At the stroke of midnight of 14 and 15 August 1947, the British rule came to an end and power was transferred to the two new independent dominions of India and Pakistan. Lord Mountbatten became the first General Governor of new Dominion of India. He shows in Jawaharlal Nehru as first Prime Minister of independent India. The Constituent Assembly of India formed in 1946 became the Parliament of Indian Dominion. The member of both the interim government 1946 and first cabinet of independent India 1947 are mentioned in the table 1.1 and 1.2 respectively. So before we discuss the table content, let's read out some more information. The boundaries between two dominions were determined by Boundary Commission headed by Radcliffe. That's why the actual line of control is also known as Radcliffe line in between India and Pakistan. So Pakistan include the provinces of West Punjab, Sindh, Balochistan, East Bengal, Northwest Frontier Province, and that is Bengal, district of Sylhet in Assam. The referendum in Northwestern Frontier Province and Sylhet was in the favor of Pakistan. So let's discuss about the table content. Interim government 1946. So the member and portfolios held by the individual. So Jawaharlal Nehru as the Vice President of Council and External Affair and Commonwealth Relations. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Home Minister and Information and Broadcasting Minister. Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Portfolio Food and Agriculture. Dr. John Mithai, Portfolio of Industries and Supplies. Jagjeevan Ram, Labor. Sardar Baldev Singh, Defense. C.H. Bhava, Work, Mines and Power. Liaquat Ali Khan, Finance. Abdur Rab Nistar, Post and Air. Asif Ali, Railway and Transport. C. Rajagopalachari, Education and Art. I. Chandangigar, sorry, I'm not able to pronounce this name. So he got Commerce. I'm not able to read clearly. All Ali Khan, that is Health. Joginder Nath Mandal, Law. Note: the member of interim government were member of the Viceroy Executive Council. The Viceroy continued to be the head of council, but Jawaharlal Nehru as a designate as a Vice President of Council. Table content to First Cabinet of Independent India 1947. Member and portfolio held. First Cabinet of Independent India. Jawaharlal Nehru, Prime Minister, External Affairs of Commonwealth, Relations, Science and Research, Scientific and Research. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel as a Home, Information and Broadcast State. Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Food and Agriculture. Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, Education. Dr. John Mithai, Railway and Transport. R.K. Sangmugham Chisti, Finance. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Law. Jagjeevan Ram, Labor. Sardar Baldev Singh, Defense. Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, Health. This is the single woman in the portfolios or in the cabinet. C.H. Bhava, Commerce. Rafi Ahmed Kidwai, Communication. Dr. Syama Prasad Mukherjee, Industries and Supplies. V.N. Gadgil, Work, Mine and Power. So this chapter is all about the historical background of polity. Let's discuss chapter number 2. Wait a second. Yes. So let's discuss about chapter number 2, making of constitution. So first topic is demand for the Constitution Assembly. It was in 1934 that the idea of Constitution Assembly for the India was put forward for the first time by M.N. Roy, a pioneer of the communist movement in India. In 1935, the Indian National Congress (INC) for the first time officially demanded a Constitution Assembly to frame the Constitution of India. In 1938, Jawaharlal Nehru, on the behalf of Indian National Congress, declared that the Constitution of the Free India must be framed without outside interference by the Constituent Assembly elected on the basis of adult franchise. Adult franchise, that means the above the mature or 18 age people can vote for their representative or to choose their representative. This view was endorsed and written reiterated by the INC by passing a resolution in 1939. The demand was finally accepted in principle by the British government in what is known as August Offer of 1940s and 1942. Sir Stephen Cripps, a member of the cabinet, came to India with the draft proposal of the British government on the framing of independent constitution to be adopted. After World War II, the Cripps proposal were rejected by the Muslim League, which wanted India to be divided into two autonomous states with two separate constituent assemblies. Finally, a cabinet mission was sent to India. While it rejected the idea of two constituent assembly, it put forth a scheme for the constituent assembly which more or less satisfied the Muslim League component of constituent assembly. Before that, we have discussed some additional knowledge, that is the cabinet mission consisting of three members: Lord Patrick Lawrence, Sir Stephen Cripps, and A.V. Alexander, arrived in India on March 24, 1946. The cabinet mission published its plan on May 16, 1946. These include the Madras, Bombay, UP, Bihar, Central Province, Odisha, Punjab, Northwest Frontier Province, Sindh, Bengal, Assam. These include Delhi, Ajmer, Mewar, Marwar, Kurg, and British Balochistan. So, component of the composition of the Constituent Assembly. The composition. Okay, let's start. The Constituent Assembly was constituted in the November 1946 under the scheme formulated by the Cabinet Mission Plan. The feature of the scheme were: first, the total strength of the Constituent Assembly was to be 389. Of these, 296 seats were to be allotted to the British India and 93 seats to be princely state. Out of 296 seats allotted to the British India, and 292 members were to be drawn from the 11 governor province and 4 from the 4 chief commissioners province, one from each. Second, each province and princely state or group of state, in case of a small state, were to be allotted seats in proportion to their representative population. Roughly one seat was to be allotted for every million population. Third, seat allocation seat allotment Seat, Seats allotted to each British province were to be divided among the three principal communities Muslim, Sikh, and Journal, all except Muslim and Sikh in the proportion of their population. The representatives of each community were to be elected by member of that community in the provincial legislature assembly and voting was to be by the method of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote. Fifth, the representatives of the princely state were to be nominated by head of princely state. It is thus clear that the Constituent Assembly was to be partly elected and partly nominated body. Moreover, the members were to be indirectly elected by the member of the provincial assemblies, who themselves were elected on the limited franchises. The election to the Constituent Assembly of 296 seats allotted to the British India province were held in July-August 1946. The Indian National Congress won 208 seats, the Muslim League 73 seats, and the small group and independent got the remaining 15 seats. However, the 93 seats allotted to the provincial states were not filled as they decided to stay away from the Constituent Assembly. Although the Constituent Assembly was not directly elected by the people of India on the basis of the adult franchises, the Assembly compared the representatives of all the sections of Indian society Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Parsis, Anglo Indians, Indian Christians, SC, STs, including women of all the three sections. The assembly included all the important personalities of India and that time with the exception of Mahatma Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. The allocation of seat in the Constituent Assembly, the result of election to be Constituent Assembly, the community-wise representation in the Constituent Assembly and the women member of the Constituent Assembly are mentioned in the table 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4 respectively. Working of the Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly held its first meeting on December 9, 1946. The Muslim League boycotted the meeting and insisted on the separate state of Pakistan. The meeting was thus attended by only 207 members. Dr. Sachidanand Sinha, the oldest member, was elected as the temporary chairman of the assembly following the French practice. On December 11, 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as a permanent chairman president of the assembly. Similarly, on January 25, 1947, H.C. Mukherjee was elected as the vice president of assembly. Later on, the assembly resolved to have two vice presidents. Accordingly, on July 16, 1947, V.T. Krishnamachari was elected as a second vice president of assembly. Objectives resolution. On December 13, 1946, Jawaharlal Nehru moved the historic objectives resolution in the assembly. It laid down the fundamental and philosophy of constitutional structure. It read: first, the Constituent Assembly declare its firm and solemn resolve to proclaim India as independent sovereign republic and to draw up for her future governance and constitution. Second, wherein the territories that now comprise British India, the territories that now form the Indian state, and such other part of India as are outside India, and the state as well as other territories as are willing to be constituted into the independent sovereign India shall be the union of them all. And third, wherein the said territories, whether with their present boundaries or with such other as may be determined by the Constituent Assembly, and thereafter according to the law of Constitution, shall possess and retain the status of autonomous unit together with the residuary power, and exercise all the power and function of the government and administration, save and accept such power as a function as are vested in the assigned to the union, or as are inherited or implied in the union or resulting therefrom. And fourth, wherein all the power and authorities of sovereign independent India, its constituent part are organ of government, are derived from the people. And fifth, wherein shall be the guarantee and secure to all the people of India justice, social, economic, and political equality of status of opportunity, and before the law freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, worship, vocation, association, and action subject to law and public morality. And sixth, wherein adequate safeguards shall be the provided for the minorities, backward and tribal areas, and depressed and other backward classes, and whereby shall be maintained the integrity of territory of republic and its sovereign right on land, sea, and air, according to justice and the law of civilized nation, etc. And eighth, the ancient land attains its rightful and honored place in the world, and make its full and willing contribution to the promotion of world peace and welfare of mankind. This resolution was unanimously adopted by the Assembly on 22nd January 1947. It influenced the eventual shaping of the Constitution, though all the subsequent stage it modified the version from the preamble of the present Constitution. Changes by the Independence Act. The representatives of the princely state who had stayed away from the Constituent Assembly gradually joined it. On April 28, 1947, representatives of the six states were part of the assembly after the acceptance of the Mountbatten Plan of June 3, 1947 for the partition of the country. The representatives of most of the other princely states took their seat in the assembly. The member of the Muslim League from the Indian Dominions also entered in the assembly. The Indian Independent Act of 1947 made the following three changes in the position of assembly. First, the assembly was made a fully sovereign body which could be frame any constitution it pleased. The act empowered the assembly to abrogate or alter any law made by the British Parliament in relation to the India. Second, the assembly also became a legislative body. In other words, two separate functions were assigned to the assembly, that is, making of constitution for free India and enacting the ordinary law for the country. These two tasks were to be performed on the separate days. Thus, the assembly became the first parliament of free India, dominion legislative. Whenever the assembly met at the constituent body, it was chaired by the Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and when it met as a legislative body, it was chaired by the G.V. Mavlankar. These two functions continued till the November 26, 1947, when the task of making the constitution was over. Third, the Muslim League member hailing from the area included in the Pakistan withdraw from the Constituent Assembly for India. Consequently, the total strength of the assembly came down to 299 as against 389 originally fixed in 1947 under the Cabinet Mission Plan. The strength of the Indian province, formerly British province, was reduced from the 296 to the 229, and those of princely state from the 93 to 70. The state-wise membership of the assembly on December 31st, 1947 is shown the table 2.5. Other function sorry other functions performed. In addition to making the constitution and enacting of ordinary laws of constituent assembly also performed the following function. First function, it ratified India's membership for the Commonwealth in May 1949. Second, it adopted the national flag on July 22nd, 1947. It adopted the national anthem on January 24th, 1950. It adopted the national song on January 24th, 1950. That means national anthem and national song adopted on the same day. Fifth, it elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the first president of India on January 24, 1950. In all, the Constituent Assembly had 11 sessions over 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. The constitution maker had gone through the constitution of about 60 countries, and draft constitution was considered for 114 days. The total expenditure incurred on making the constitution amounted to 64 lakh. Today the base model of BMW costs 64 lakh. On January 24, 1950, the Constituent Assembly held its final session. It, however, did not end and continue as the Provincial Parliament of India from January 26, 1950 till the formation of new parliament after the first general election in 1951 to 1952. The complete list of the session of the Constituent Assembly is given in table 2.6. Constituent committees of the Constituent Assembly. So let's discuss about the major committees. The Constituent Assembly appointed a number of committees to deal with the different tasks of constitution making. Out of these, 8 were major committee and other were minor committee. The name of these committee and their chairman are given below. Major committees: first committee, Union Power Committee, Jawaharlal Nehru. Second, Union Constitution Committee, Jawaharlal Nehru. Third, Provincial Constitution Committee, Sardar Patel. Fourth, Drafting Committee, our dear Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Fifth, Advisory Committee on the Fundamental Right, Minorities and Tribal and Excluded Areas, Sardar Patel. This committee had the following 5 subcommittees. First committee, Fundamental Rights Subcommittee, J.B. Kripalani. B. Minority Subcommittee, H.C. Mukherjee. C. North-East Frontier Tribal Area and Assam Excluded, Partly Excluded Subcommittee, Gopinath Bardoloi. D. Excluded and Partly Excluded Area, Kostak, other than those in Assam, close. Subcommittee A.V. Thakur. E. North West Frontier Tribal Area Subcommittee. Sixth, Rule of Procedure Committee, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Seventh, State Committee, Committee for Negotiating with State, Jawaharlal Nehru. Steering Committee, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Minor committees, there is 5 committees. Finance and Staff Committee, Dr. Prasad. Credentials Committee, Aladi Krishna Swami Iyer. House Committee, B. Pattabhai Sitaramaiah. Fourth, Order of Business Committee, Dr. K.M. Munshi. Fifth, Ad hoc Committee on the National Flag, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Sixth, Committee on the Function of Constituent Assembly, G.V. Mavlankar. Seventh, Ad hoc Committee on Supreme Court, S. Varadachari, not Assembly member. 8. Committee on Chief Commissioner Province, B. Pattabhai Sitaramaiah. 9th, Expert Committee on Financial Provinces of the Union Constitution, Nalini Rajan Sarkar, not an assembly member. 10th, Legislative Province Commission, S.K. Dhar, not an assembly member. 11th, Special Committee to examine the draft constitution, Jawaharlal Nehru. 12th, Press Gallery Committee, Usha Nath Sen. 13th, Ad hoc Committee on Citizenship, S. Varadhachari, not a assembly member. Drafting Committee. Among all the committees of the Constitution Assembly, the most important committee was Drafting Committee, set up on August 29, 1947. It was this committee that was entrusted with the task of preparing a draft of the new constitution. It consists of 7 members. They are Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Chairman, N. Gopal Swami Iyer, third, Aladi Krishna Swami Iyer, K.M. Munshi, Syed Muhammad Sadullah, N.K. Madhav Rao. He replaced B.L. Mithar, who resigned due to the ill health. T.T. Krishnamachari, he replaced by D.P. Khaitan, who died in 1948. The drafting committee, after taking into the consideration the proposal of the various committees, prepared the first draft of the Constitution of the India, which was published in February 1947. The people of India were given 8 months to discuss the draft and propose amendment. In the light of public comments, criticism and suggestion, the drafting committee prepared a second draft, which was published in October 1948. The drafting committee took less than 6 months to prepare its draft. In all, it sat only 141 days. Enactment of the Constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar introduced the final draft of Constitution in Assembly 4th November 1948, first reading. The Assembly had general discussion on its 5 days till 9th November 1948. The second reading, clause by clause consideration, started on November 15, 1948 and ended on 17 October 1949. During this stage, as many as 7,653 amendments were proposed and 2,473 were actually discussed in the Assembly. The third reading of the draft started on 14 November 1949. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar moved a motion, the Constitution as settled by the Assembly, to be passed. The motion on the draft Constitution was declared as a passed on November 26, 1949 and received the signature of the member and president. Out of total 299 members of the assembly, only 284 were actually present on that day and signed the constitution. This is also the date mentioned in the preamble as the date on which the people of India in the Constituent Assembly adopted, enacted, and give to themselves this constitution. The constitution, as adopted on November 26, 1949, contained a preamble 395 article and 8 schedule. The preamble was enacted after the entire constitution was already enacted. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the then law minister, piloted the draft constitution in the assembly. He took a very prominent part in the deliberation of the assembly. He was known for his logical, forceful, and persuasive argument on the floor of the assembly. He is recognized as the father of the Constitution of India. This brilliant writer, constitutional expert, and undisappointed leader of the scheduled caste is also known as chief architect of the Constitution of India. On November 19, 2015, the government of India has decided to celebrate the November 26th of every year as the Constitution Day, Savidhan Divas, to promote constitutional value among citizens. Enactment of the Constitution. Some provision of the Constitution pretending to do the citizen, election provision, parliament, temporary and transitional provision, and short title contained in the article 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 16, 324, 366, 367, 379, 380, 388, 391, 392, and 393 came into force on the November 26, 1949 itself. The remaining provision, the major part of the constitution, came into force on January 26, 1950. This day is referred to in the constituent as the date of its commencement and celebrated as the Republic Day. January 26 was specifically chosen as the date of commencement of the constitution because of its historical importance. It was on this day in 1930 the Purn Swaraj Day was celebrated following the resolution of the Lahore session. December 1929, the Indian National Congress was the commemorate of Constitution, the Indian Independent Act 1947, and the Government of India Act 1935, with all the enactment amending or supplementing the latter act were repealed. The abolition of Privy Council Jurisdiction Act 1949 was, however, continued. Expert Committee of the Congress. While election to the Constituent Assembly were still in the progress on July 8, 1946, the Congress Party Indian National Congress appointed an expert committee for the purpose of preparing the material for the Constituent Assembly. This committee consisted for the following member: first, Jawaharlal Nehru, chairman; second, M. Saif Ali; third, K. M. Munshi; fourth, N. Gopal Swami Iyer; fifth, K. T. Shah; sixth, D. R. Gadgil; seventh, Humayun Kabir; eighth, S. K. Sanathan. Later on the chairman's proposal, it was resolved that Krishna Kripalani be co-opted as a member and convener of the committee. The committee had two sittings, the first at the New Delhi from July 22 to 22nd, 1946, and the second Bombay from August 15 to 17, 1946. Apart from the number of noted prepared by its members, the committee discussed the procedure to be adopted by the Constituent Assembly, the question of the appointment of the various committee and drafted of resolution on the objective of constitution to be moved during the first session of the Constituent Assembly. On the role played by this committee in the making of constitution, Gra- Granville Austin, an American constitution expert, observed, "It was the Congress expert committee that set India on the road to her present constitution. The committee member working within the framework of the cabinet mission scheme made general suggestion about the autonomous area, the power of provincial government and the center, and about such issue as the princely state and the amending power. This also drafted a resolution closely resembling the objective resolution." Criticism of the Constituent Assembly. The critics have been criticized in the Constituent Assembly on the various grounds. These are follows. First, not a representative body. The critics have argued that the Constituent Assembly was not a representative body as its members were not directly elected by the people of India on the basis of universal adult franchises. Second, not a sovereign body. The critics maintained that the Constituent Assembly was not a sovereign body as it was created by the proposal of the British government. Further, they said that the Assembly held its session with the permission from the British government. Third, time consuming. According to the critics, the Constituent Assembly took an unduly long time to make the constitution. They stated that the framer of the American Constitution took only 4 months to complete their work. In this context, Naziruddin Ahmad, a member of the Constituent Assembly, coined a new name of the drafting committee to show his contempt of it. He called it a drafting committee. The time taken by the framers of the other constituent is given in table 2.7. Dominated by Congress. The critics charged that the Constituent Assembly was dominated by the Congress party. In this context, Granville Austin, the American constituent expert, remarked the Constituent Assembly was a one party body in an essential one party country. The Assembly was Congress and the Congress was India. Lawyer politician domination. It was also maintained by the critics that the Constituent Assembly was dominated by lawyers and politicians. They pointed out that other sections of the society were not significantly represented. This to them is the main reason for the balconies and complicated language of the Constitution. Dominated by Hindus. According to some critics, the Constitution Assembly was Hindu dominated body. Lord Viscount Simon called it body of Hindus. Similarly, Winston Churchill commented that the Constitution Assembly represent only one major community in India. Important fact. First, the elephant was adopted as the symbol seal of the Constituent Assembly. Second, Sir B.N. Rao was adopted as the Constituent Advisor, legal advisor of the Constituent Assembly. Third, H.V.R. Iyengar was the secretary of the Constituent Assembly. S.N. Mukherjee was the chief draftman of the Constituent in the Constituent Assembly. The Prem Bihari Narayan Rai Jadhav was calligrapher of the Indian Constitution. The original Constitution was handwritten by him in following italic style. 6. The original version of the beautified and decorated by the artist from the Santi Niketan, including Nandlal Bose and Behor Ram Manohar Sinha. Behor Ram Manohar Sinha illustrated, beautified, and ornamented the original preamble, calligraphed by the Prem Bihari Narayan Rayjada. 8th. The calligraphy of the Indian version of the original constitution was done by the Vasant Kishan Vidya and elegantly decorated and illustrated by Nandlal Bose. Hindi text of the Constitution. Originally, the Constitution of India did not make any provision with respect to an authority text of Constitution in the Hindi language. Later, the provision in this regard was made by the 58th Constitution Amendment Act 1987. This act inserted a new Article 394A in the last part of the Constitution, that is Part 22nd. This article contained the following provision. First, President shall cause the publish under this authority. First, the translation of the Constitution in Hindi language, this modification which are necessary to bring it in conformity with the language style and terminology adopted in the authoritative text and central act in Hindi, and made it in it. All the amendments of Constitution made before such publication should be incorporated in it. Second, the translation in Hindi of every amendment of the Constitution made in English. Second, the translation of Constitution and its every amendment published shall be constructed to have the same meaning as the original text in English. If any difficulty arises in this matter, the President shall cause the Hindi text and reverse the suitable. The third, translation of the Constitution and its every amendment published shall be deemed to be for all the purpose it authoritative text in Hindi. Table 2.2, result of election on the Constituent Assembly July-August 1946. Name of party, seat won. Congress 208, Muslim League 73, Unionist Party 1, Unionist Muslim 1, Unionist Scheduled Caste 1, Krishak Praja Party 1, Scheduled Caste Federation 1, Sikh Non-Congress 1, Communist Party 1, Independent 8, total 296. Table 2.1, allocation of seat in Constituent Assembly of India 1946. Areas seat. First, British India Province 292. Second, Princely State Indian State 93. Chief Commissioner Province 4, total 389. Table 2.3, committee wise representation in Constituent Assembly 1946. Community strength. Hindu community strength 163, Muslim 80, Scheduled Caste 31, Indian Christian 6, Backward Tribes 6, Sikh 4, Anglo Indians 3, Parsis 3, total 296. Table 2.4, women member of Constituent Assembly. Ammu Swaminathan, Madras General Constituency. Annie Maskey Karne, Travancore and Cochin Union. Begum Aziz Rasool, United Province Muslim. Dakshani Veliadan, Madras. G. Gurabai, Madras. Hasna Mehta, Bombay. Kamla United Province, Leela Rai, West Bengal, Lalita Chaudhary, Odisha Journal, Purnima Banerjee, United Province, Rajkumari Amrita Kaur, Central Province, and Barar Journal. 12th Renu Roy, West Bengal, Sarojini Naidu, Bihar, Sucheta Kripalani, United Province Journal, Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, United Province Journal. Note: in total, the Constituent Assembly had 15 women members. So, selected speech of the women member of the Constituent Assembly, Rajya Sabha, Secretariat 2012, page number 9th, table 2.4, 2.5, state-wise membership of Constituent Assembly of India as on December 31st, 1947. Serial number, name and number of members. Province, Indian Province 229. First, Madras, number of member 49. Bombay 21. West Bengal 19. United Province 55. East Punjab 12. Bihar 36. CP and Barar 17. Assam 8. Odisha 9. Delhi 1. Ajmer Marwar 1. Kurg 1. Indian State Princely State 70. Alwar 1. Baroda 3. Bhopal 1. Bikaner 1. Cochin 1. Gwalior 4. Indore 1. Jaipur 1. Jodhpur 2. Kolhapur 1. Kota 1. Mayurbhanj 1. Mysore 7. Patiala 2. Thank you. This is the end of chapter number 2.